show, and today we're going to start with a basic overview of short sales, and then we're going to take a deep dive. Now, Steve, we're going to cover both short sales for investors, short sales as it would relate to people who may need to take advantage of that process and may be in a tough spot right now. So both from the realtor context, from an investor context, and from someone who may have to unfortunately avail themselves of a short sale. So Steve, what is a short sale?
A short sale is where you need to sell your home and you cannot get a payoff that will pay the mortgage off. So you need to go to the bank and ask them to let you have a short payoff on your mortgage. For example, you owe $200,000 on your mortgage. Because of property conditions, you can only give them $160,000. You're $40,000 short on your payoff of your loan. Gary and I would go to the bank and we would negotiate with them to have them accept a short payoff. That is a short sale.
And Steve, we were talking about this last week, and what do you think is going to happen given this pandemic? Are short sales going to increase once the stay-at-home order is lifted? What's your prognostication on that? And before you answer that question, I would be remiss if I didn't have them give everyone just a 30-second overview of who Steve Becker is, how many short sales you've negotiated in your career.
Hey, shout out to Rosario there. I can see Rosario is on the call. How you doing, buddy? I've been in the short sale business for 12 years. I started, I had sold my insurance business. I put 3 kids through college, paid for 3 weddings. And now I was trying to look at my retirement and I didn't have enough. So I looked to real estate to build the money that I needed for retirement. So I started and I looked at a bunch of different avenues in investing, and I discovered that short sales was going to be best for me because I would be negotiating directly with a bank instead of trying to get a homeowner to take a discount or competing in auctions or something like that. So I was lucky enough to discover short sales, 13 years ago. So I started on my own as just a private investor. And the very first one I did, it was probably a godsend. I went to a seller. I sent her a letter. She called me up. I went and saw her. She accepted my offer for 25% less than market value. And I bought my first rental property. Fabulous. I sent out my second batch of letters. I get another couple I'm sitting with. And all I can negotiate with them is 18% with the bank off of the value. My number was 25. So I had to go to them and tell these sellers, I'm sorry, I can't buy your house. You know, it didn't meet my number. And the woman broke down and literally cried, saying, I thought you were going to save us. So I drove home that night just heartbroken that I wasn't able to help these people. So that's when I thought, you know, if I got a realtor's license, even if I didn't want to accept an 18% discount, there would be someone in the marketplace that would love to get a property for that. And that's when I got my real estate license. And I bought the ones that I got 25% on. I listed and sold the houses in the MLS that I did not get 25% on. So that's how I started. And then when the market exploded in 2008, the attorney I was working for begged me to come in. He said, this is, I have too many cases to do myself. I want you and your 2 people to come in here and just negotiate only. So I met with my 2 staff people and we're like, well, we won't have to drive around anymore. We won't have to put up for sale signs when they steal them. We can just work in our homes and negotiate short sales for these attorneys. So that's what we did. And that's what I've been doing for 12 years. I met Gary about, I think, 6 or 7 years ago, and I've been helping him. But all we do, there's 3 of us, all we do is negotiate short sales every day. And I think between the 3 of us, we've closed well over 1,000 short sales in 12 years.
Now, Steve, you said something that's very, very, very key. All that you do is negotiate short sales every day. And here's the other secret to getting these accomplished. I don't pay you unless the property closes.
That's correct.
So
okay, just like the realtor and the attorney, right?
So the beauty of that, guys, is that he has a vested interest. You know, one of the things that we find with short sales is people always wonder, why does it take so terribly long? Well, the reality is attorneys, realtors, we're just like everybody else in the world. And if there's something that is a problem file, if it's something that you just don't want to deal with, that ends up sitting on the bottom of the pile. So we're closing transactions every day that are simple, REO, regular retail deals. But what we found is these short sales sat. So when we connected with Steve, what we realized is immediately Steve's economic incentive is to get this thing closed and to the closing table as quickly as possible. Now, Steve, let's peel back the onion just a little bit, and I want to take a step back. The term foreclosure, often misunderstood.
Yes.
Can you explain the 3 actions referred to as foreclosure?
I'm glad you brought that up, Gary. I had that on my list as well. It is a very commonly used term, foreclosure, but foreclosure can mean 3 things. The first is pre-foreclosure. Pre-foreclosure is when someone's been notified by the bank that they're in default, their house is going to be sold within a certain time period, within 210 days by law, but they still own the house. The sellers own the house until the day of sale. That is a pre-foreclosure. And pre-foreclosures are where you're still able to do a short sale. The second term used in foreclosure is actually the day of sale. The seller has been given 210 days, they did nothing or they couldn't get something done. The house is actually sold at a public auction, a foreclosure, on the sale date on the courthouse steps. And sometimes an investor can go and get a good buy on a house that way. Oftentimes though, these houses are upside down and the house is sold back to the bank that had the mortgage. So now they have the mortgage and ownership of the deed. The third term that's used in foreclosure is once the bank takes the house back, now they have to turn around and resell the property. That's normally called an REO. It's bank owned and they hire a real estate company to hold an auction to sell their house. So there's pre-foreclosure, there's the day of the sale, the auction, or it's after the sale when the bank owns the property. All of those can be called foreclosures, but the only time you can do a short sale is in a pre-foreclosure before the sheriff's sale.
Because at that point, once the sheriff's sale occurs, the seller is no longer in control of the asset because they're not the owner anymore.
Correct. The day of the sale is where the bank gets owner, well, whoever buys the property, an investor or the bank, gets ownership to the property. Correct.
So can every seller do a short sale, or can a seller do a short sale if they're current on their mortgage?
No, that's a great misnomer. I'm glad you brought that up, Gary, because we get that call all the time from realtors. In fact, I had a conversation with a realtor and a seller this morning about 9:30, and she was current on her mortgage. So the first thing I said is, are you able to make this payment? And she said, no, we've been borrowing money from my dad. You know, because of COVID, both of them are laid off. They've gotten behind. The house needs lots of repairs. They bought it as a fixer. So anyway, I said, because you can't make this payment, you know, there's no way we can do a short sale while you're current. Why are you borrowing money from your dad when we should be going to the bank and telling him you can't make this payment? So you cannot do a short sale if you are current.
And Steve, one of the things that I've often found is that people will come to me and say, my house isn't worth what I bought it for. So therefore I want to do a short sale. Now this is actually a very, very, very simple to understand concept. A lot of cobwebs get put in the mind on these short sales, but look folks, the reality is the bank is just like you and I. If I give Steve $100 and I tell Steve that I blew that $100, the $100 isn't worth what it used to be because inflation kicked in, because the federal government just gave out trillions of dollars of money, and now, you know, $100 isn't what it used to be, worth what it used to be. The bank analyzes whether you're eligible for a short sale. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. Just like they analyze you when they go to give you a loan. You submit a loan application, and they determine whether they're going to extend credit terms to you. And similarly, on the backside, Steve has to make a very compelling case that the short sale is the best option for the bank to mitigate their loss, because the banks aren't in the business of losing money just because your property isn't worth what it used to be, right?
Correct.
And so how do we know when a seller is short?
Okay. You know, it is a simple concept, but it can also be complicated because of circumstances. So I'm going to tell you now, call me, right? And Gary knows that. You know, I'm going to give you my cell number either now or at the end of this conversation. Call me on every situation. I had one this morning with this young family. They were obviously upside down. They couldn't pay their mortgage. They had no income coming in. It was a very simple case. I had one 2 weeks ago. One of Gary's realtors called me, and here was a doctor on the north side, right? And he bought a home for his daughter, and his daughter got married and moved. This house now became an inconvenience to him, right? He bought it when the market was high. Now the market's down, and he's maybe $30,000 or $40,000 upside down in this house, and he wanted to unload it. He wanted to get rid of it. Well, as I went through and looked at his financials, he could obviously pay this mortgage. This doctor was making $250,000 a year. So he didn't want to make this mortgage payment, but he was financially able to. And we had to explain to him, Gary and I, that he could not do a short sale because he could afford this mortgage. So a short sale has to be on a financial hardship.
And Steve, I want you to spend just a minute telling people how you, the forms and the documents, and quite frankly, the letter, the commitment letter that we have people sign, because what most people do is we put the cart before the horse. We don't calibrate the realtor's expectation, the buyer's expectation. We don't calibrate the person who is in a short sales expectation. So what are the basic things that need to be collected in advance so that when it comes to you, you're prepared to get from point A to point B in a much quicker way?
Great. And as you know, this is part of our system. Gary and I invented a system when we started working together 7 years ago to make this process streamlined so that when we take a file, we know there's almost a 99% chance we're going to get it done. So when we interview the client, we want to check to make sure that they have a financial hardship. It's number one. Number two, then, we get an authorization from these people to contact their bank and put the bank on notice that we're going to be doing a short sale versus loan modification or a workout program or something on that. We let the bank know that they're going to be doing a short sale. Then we collect financial information. We collect pay stubs from them. We collect their bank statements and their tax returns. And we review these documents to make sure that the story we're telling the bank about is going to be backed up in black and white. I'll give you an example. I talked to this young couple this morning. They lost their jobs. They bought this house, which was a fixer, and they now have no money to fix it. And they're extremely upside down, maybe $40,000 or $50,000 upside down after 2 years. So the first thing I said to her, I confirmed that they'd lost their jobs. They have a financial hardship. The very next question I said is, how much money do you have in the bank? And she said, well, I have about $18,000 saved up. It was like, you know, how do I go to the bank and tell them, well, you've lost your jobs, but you have $18,000 in the bank? You know, you could be making mortgage payments with, right? That story's not going to jive. So I said, you know, you've got to get that $18,000 out of the bank immediately. Give it to your dad, give it to your mom. But when we go to the bank to present your case, we have to make sure that our story is provable. And because we asked that question, we're probably going to be able to help this young couple out with their short sale. Is that what you were talking about, Gary?
Absolutely. And Steve, you know, I'm looking at the participants that we have, and I see that there's a lot of investors. So I'm going to ask a question, or I'm going to make a statement and just have you, you know, kind of, you know, follow up with my general statement, if I can be on my soapbox for a second. I know you run for Team World Vision. You are faith-based. You know, you believe in a higher power. and when I say this, I want people to understand that as investors, we have an ethical obligation. We have a moral obligation that we don't put people in a position where you are going to devastate them. Because oftentimes investors place offers in a very, very cavalier fashion. They're going to maybe try to wholesale it. They don't know what they're going to do. And what we have to understand, and I think everybody who's been watching the news, people are very vulnerable right now. And oftentimes with short sales, this is their one and only chance. So it's wonderful that this is an opportunity where we can help other people get out from underneath things. And perhaps in so doing that, we're able to get a property for less than what we might otherwise pay. But always, I want to just emphasize, always remember that this is a real person who has real obligations, who has real life consequences if we don't follow through on our obligation. When we affix our signature on the bottom of that contract that says that we're going to buy this property, and 2 months go by, Steve negotiates that short sale, and it becomes inconvenient for you, you have devastated someone, because they are going to foreclosure, they're losing their house, they're losing everything, and that's on your shoulders. Steve, what do you think?
I absolutely agree. And you know, we've been through this, so I'm glad you brought it up. I think investors, just because they're thinking on their side, right? They just think, you know, profits, this is a business, you know, but yeah, these are people's lives that are at stake. And when investors don't follow through, it really makes a heartbreaking situation for some of these people.
So what I know a lot of people are going to want to know, Steve, because again, I see there's a number of investors on the call. How do we prospect for a short sale?
All right. Let me deviate just a little bit because
While you deviate, before you deviate, Steve, I meant to mention this before.
All right.
For those who have questions, please go to the Zoom group chat. It should be on your screen. Type in those questions. I have about 15 minutes, 20 more minutes worth of content to get through that I want Steve to share his experience on handling over 1,000 successful short sales. But after he's dived through that content, I want to answer your questions. So Steve, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, so the thing I was making notes on last night when I was preparing is I've taken calls in the last 2 weeks from 4 different realtors. And these are 4 realtors who had active listings going, right? All of a sudden the market just crashes. Nobody's out watching houses right now. And these 4 realtors called me because the banks for their clients had called the client who's listed for sale and said, listen, we know the market is crazy right now. We're going to offer you 90 days of no payments. Are you interested in that? Right? So they call their realtor right away saying, well, maybe we should cancel the listing because I could take advantage of this 90 days of free payments. The technical term is called a forbearance. Some of you may know that or not, but they're offering these people a forbearance plan or a 90-day forgiveness plan. And what I told the realtors was you have to be really careful because in one of the cases, the bank was literally going to let the seller go with 90 days, no payments, and then add the money to the back of the loan. That was a great deal for the seller. But in the other 3 cases, what it turned out to be was the bank was going to let them go with 90 days with no payments. But then on the 91st day, they now owed 3 months worth of mortgage payments. So it was a 90-day forbearance plan that was fully payable after 90 days. It was like, oh my God, what sense in the world? Why would you stop listing your home? You know, why would you give in to this, right? When you're going to owe all this money that you can't pay. So as investors, you need to ask people, they're going to be saying, oh, I got a forbearance. My bank has given me a forbearance plan. Don't take that as your deal is done. as an investor, ask for a copy of it and say, is that forbearance plan due in 90 days? Or is it due at the end of the mortgage? And if it's due in 90 days, you just found a great prospect for a short sale, an investor buyer offer.
Steve, I want to just comment on that for a second.
Yeah.
You weren't part of this Zoom call, but the first Zoom call that I did was with a very good friend of mine, the top REO agent in the Chicagoland area, does more REO sales than any attorney, any broker, not attorney, Ryan Smith. And Ryan and I work together all the time. And Ryan mentioned that this is what primarily the banks are doing, which is that forbearance is simply a 90-day period whereby if your payment's $2,000 a month, 90 days from now, you actually owe $8,000.
Right.
Because it's 2, 4, 6 plus that following month. And that is what he's predicting is going to cause a major collapse and a huge onslaught of foreclosures, and thereby out opening up this opportunity for short sales. So again, just keep going on the theme of prospecting for a short sale.
Right. I just wanted to emphasize, because I know investors out there, even realtors, if they're on the call, they're going to be approaching these prospects who are behind. And I didn't want you to be blown off by this thing. Oh, I worked out a forbearance plan with my bank. Your eyes should be wide as silver dollars saying, well, let's look at that forbearance plan. And is it due in 90 days? Like some that I've seen, because they're not aware of this. And maybe you can get the document out and realize that you just created an opportunity for yourself by asking one more question when they blow you off with, oh, I have a forbearance plan going. So hang in there. And if you have any questions on it, call Gary, call myself. I think what I used when I started in my investor career, and what I've put a ton of investors onto, is there are people out there that organize the foreclosure data. So I put down a couple different ways that you can find potential pre-foreclosures. Remember, we talked about before the sale, the day of the sale, and then after the sale becomes an REO. Prospecting for short sales are pre-foreclosures. And there's a couple different ways to do it. You can go to the county's website. All foreclosures, the attorney has to go and file his foreclosure with the county. So each county has a website. It'll generally be through the sheriff's department, and they will list the foreclosures on that site. I don't find that a great source because they don't always tell you the date they filed. You don't know if it was filed this week. You don't know if it was 3 months ago. But you can find foreclosure data on some of the sheriff's websites. What Gary and I have found to be a much more accurate tool is a pay-for website. And I'll give you the name of this organization that we like to use. It's ILFLS, Illinois Foreclosure Listing Service, ILFLS.com. I love this service. It's owned by an attorney in DuPage County. He sends people out into each of the county offices several times a week, at least twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And he updates his material on his website, and it is the most current information you can get. What we also love about this website is you can sort this material and you can create lists from it. In other words, if you just want to prospect the brand new people who went into foreclosure, you can pull out the brand new listings within 30 days. There are others who, because a lot of people prospect on that front end, these sellers are getting inundated with calls. They're like, I'm going to wait for the people that kind of sat on their butts, didn't take action. I'm going to contact the people at the 90-day process. You can pull out just people who didn't get on the bandwagon early. Now your letter may become more viable because they're not getting called as much, right? People gave up on them because they didn't take action early. I also have a group of realtors who very successfully market at the end of the process. The very last letter that a seller gets in a foreclosure they will get this approximately 33 days before their sale date. They get a letter at the beginning to tell you they're in foreclosure. They get a letter notifying them that their repayment period has ended. And then at the very end, they get one more letter telling them your house is going to be sold, and they give them the date in the letter. And that is another unbelievable opportunity to jump in and market for short sales, because these now people, they have no options left, right? They're 30 days before sale. They're panicked beyond belief. They tried things on their own, or they sat on their butt, but there are a lot of people very successfully working this end market and getting a lot of results on it. So again, the website, ilfls.com. And the other beautiful thing about it, now Gary and I pay for this by the year because it's cheaper and we use it every day, but investors or realtors, you can use this 1 month at a time. I think it's in the $35 to $39 a month range. But to get access to this information, then the data that you pull down into a list is also mail mergeable. So you can do postcards, letters. It's an amazing tool, a resource for anyone, be it a realtor or an investor, to have. ILFLS. I think there is nothing like this for marketing. Gary, what do you think?
That's a huge value add, Steve. You know, I know you already mentioned we're getting about 99% or more of the short sales that we have come through our office approved. Give people an idea on, you know, I hear people talk about, you know, short sales take 12 months. They take 18 months. They take, you know, forever. I've reared children and they've graduated from college before the short sale was approved.
Right.
What's your average from start to finish? And I'm going to give you 2 questions. One, on a regular transaction where there's only one mortgage, and then when there's a second mortgage.
All right. So our average, and Gary knows this, is we average 75 to 90 days start to finish. And I know it sounds unbelievable, but it's because of the system Gary and I employ, and he referred to it a little bit, which is we want to get involved with you as early as possible. Like at your first meeting with a client, or as soon as you find out that it's going to be a short sale situation. Gary knows that he's authorized me. I'm on calls a couple times a week with realtors who are, or investors who are going to someone's home and they don't really know all the things to say or ask. So they literally bring me in on a conference call, and I can be there with you at the kitchen table, giving advice to your sellers and help you get the deal done. And what we tell them is we want to be involved as quickly as possible. I want your authorization. I want to know the bank. We want to get our notification off to the bank as quickly as possible, so that by the time that you get a contract put together, or if you have to list the property and have it for sale, we are already active with a short sale file at the bank, so that when the offer comes in, boom, we are just moving through this thing really quickly.
And what's the commitment letter? We have a kind of a sign-off sheet that every seller has to sign off on. And I think that's something that's very good. In fact, we have everyone's email address who signed up. We'll get that out to each person so that they have that information. But that sign-off sheet that says you have to do A, B, C, D, you have to commit to this, you have to commit to that. Speak a little bit about that commitment sheet we prepared.
You want me to go through the 10 questions? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's so key.
All right.
Because guys, while he's looking for that, these 10 questions that Steve and I prepared, that you literally have to have your seller initial by each one, committing on the front end to do that, so that right before the sale happens or right during the middle of the process, we can remind them, hey, remember 2 months ago when you agreed to the following? Because when people hear short sales, right, the only thing that they hear, in my experience, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, is all of a sudden they get alligator arms. And
right.
They feel like they have no obligation to do anything. They're not required to do anything. They don't have to pay a water bill. They don't have to, now they can stop paying all their HOA bills. This is literally they believe better than the federal stimulus package that just came and just poured money out. I mean, I wish I had, dollar bills. If it was like this deck of cards, it would be like this: money, 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 money. So what's that commitment letter?
All right. So Gary and I developed this, as I said, 6 or 7 years ago. But we just sat there and kind of brainstormed, what are the reasons that short sales are not working? Why are they not working? And we came up with 10 different scenarios that if we'd have talked to a seller at the beginning of the process and said, do you promise me you'll do this? Do you promise me you'll do that? Do you promise me? If we got these 10 questions answered, then our short sale was 100% guaranteed, and it was going to go through smoother and faster. So and Gary, are you going to offer these 10 questions to your people when we're done?
Yeah, we're going to email that out, but go ahead and run through it real quick though.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you're going to get it. So we'll get this to you. But question number one is when a seller is behind on their mortgage, I just told you about the website ILFLS. As soon as the public is notified about this foreclosure, and it is public information on a county website, they're going to get a lot of letters. And they're going to get letters from investors, they're going to get letters from realtors, and they're going to get letters from bankruptcy attorneys, right? That's another out, not a great option, the worst option, but so they're getting letters from all the people. So the number one question that I ask when I'm talking to sellers, I asked this young couple this morning, was, besides your mortgage, are you behind on a lot of other bills? The woman said, absolutely, we're behind on utilities and everything. I said, have you worked with or are you thinking about doing a bankruptcy? She said, someone contacted us about that last week. We talked to our realtor who referred us to you, so we've not called that person, but yes, we were thinking about doing a bankruptcy. I was like, I'm so glad you told me this ahead of time, because you can still do a bankruptcy, but you have to wait until your short sale is done. Otherwise, you've really screwed yourself up big time. So let's get this short sale done. And then if you still want to try to pursue a bankruptcy afterward, we can try to get rid of the rest of the debt for you. So because if you don't ask about that question and you start your short sale process and all of a sudden she called that bankruptcy attorney, we didn't even know about it, it is going to stop your sale in its tracks. And I'll guarantee you're going to lose the deal. So number one is make sure your seller is not going to file a bankruptcy during your short sale and that they wait until the end of the short sale to process one. Just critical. Number two, have they stopped making their mortgage payment, right? The woman I talked to this morning, she was borrowing money from her dad. She's not going to borrow any more money. She's going to be behind this month. So have they stopped making mortgage payments to all of their liens? First mortgage, second mortgage, whatever. All right. Third question is you start asking them about what caused them to get into trouble. Here you're trying to verify, do they have a financial hardship, a provable financial hardship? Let me give you an example of this. I talked to this young couple this morning. You remember they had the money in the bank that they had to get out? I talked to, and I told you about the doctor who couldn't do the short sale, right? Well, we got called into this case with the doctor after somebody else had failed. So we never got to ask these questions up front. And then we find out he's got all this money, right? So we could have saved this client, this realtor and this investor a ton of time because we would have clarified that there was no financial hardship at the beginning. So question number three is, do you have a financial hardship? And then you start asking more questions. What is that? Well, I lost my job. We're getting a divorce, disability, accident, all kinds of things happen. But it's a provable financial hardship. And I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say this like 20 times during the call. But when you have a question on any of these, call Steve. Call Steve, and I can help you. Because there's a lot of times where we can do a conference call. I can jump on and we can help you with these things, okay? All right, number four. Number four question is, we're going to do this short sale for you. Do you have a way to move out of your home in 30 days? This sounds like a stupid question, but they're living there for free. And now all of a sudden we negotiate a short sale in 60 to 90 days. We come back and we want to get it done And they're, oh, I really can't be out in 30 days, right? So we lost some deals because we had sellers who didn't move out, and didn't want to move out for free.
Every one of these commitments, guys, is a result of a experience
Right.
where we made a mistake.
Right.
We failed to inform our clients because
Right.
we didn't think for a second that we had to tell them closing means keys are given and you're out of the house. So these are real things that happen where we've developed this to get that commitment from them that they have to be out, because the realtors spend a massive amount of time. And Steve and I talk about this all the time. Yes, this person is in a very, very, very bad spot. And yes, this person has had a lot of things happen to them that were not under their control. Yet, as it relates to the short sale, the time involved by the realtor, by the buyer, by our office is exponentially more than the seller. The seller just has to make sure they're out of the house. So what we found is that they don't have the skin in the game and they haven't had to make any sort of commitment. So this letter, and you're on number 4, I don't want to stop you,
Right.
but this letter is getting them to be a part of the process and commit to the closing because it's in their best interest.
Yeah. And the reason for that is in a traditional sale, right? Investors, you're offering people money, right? You're getting the house at a discount, but you're going to get them funds at a closing. They're going to cooperate with you like crazy because they want that check. But in a short sale, the seller is getting nothing at closing. We're saving their credit. They're getting some benefits, but they're getting no money at the closing. And that's why Gary's talking about the longer these go on, people dial out. They don't want to do anything, right? And all of these, they make problems for us trying to get a short sale done. So it's because they're not getting any money that you need to get these commitments up front so that you can hold them accountable during the process if they get squirrely on you. All right. So number 4 was, do they have a plan to move out, right? And we have to make sure that they have. I'm going to go live with my parents. I'm going to put my stuff in storage and live with my brother. Whatever the deal is, they have a plan in place that they can move in 30 days once we get our short sale done. All right, number 5. This one sounds stupid, but it's a big deal. We get confirmation from the seller that they're going to leave all of their appliances, the refrigerator, the stove, the microwave, all of these appliances that are built into their kitchen area. And it sounds crazy, but I had a woman one time who told me, no, I'm taking that refrigerator with me. I'm still paying Sears and Roebuck for it on my credit card. And I had to convince her that she had to leave the refrigerator, because who wants to buy a house and then have to put $2,000 or $2,500 into a refrigerator? Made her house less marketable. I convinced her to leave the refrigerator, right, and not steal any of the appliances to make the house more saleable and to prevent a problem at closing when the buyer sees the house with all the appliances. Now they're coming back the day before the close, and now stuff's missing, right? There's fixtures missing. There's the dishwasher's been taken out. The stainless steel refrigerator was switched out with a white one. All of these problems. Why? Because they're not getting any money at closing. You've got to have a commitment. You're going to leave everything here, and that's how it's going to be. You agree to that. Number 6. Are you part of a homeowners or property owners association? Yes or no? And if so, are you current on your bills? I've got a case with one of Gary's realtors now. I think they're like $7,000 or $8,000 to an HOA. And if we don't have a way to take care of that bill, if we can't find a way to get that paid, then why are we even attempting a short sale? This can be all of these 10 questions are qualifying questions.
And banks are reluctant to cover HOA dues.
Exactly. Yeah, they give you a little bit. So these 10 questions, if you want to think about it, I want you to think about it this way. You need to ask these 10 questions to qualify if a short sale is even possible. If they're going to steal the appliances, that is a major problem. If they're not going to move out 30 days after we get approval, that is a major problem for you. And if they've got $7,000 in condo association bills and you don't find out about that till closing, that's a major problem for you. So you should be using these 10 questions with every one of your sellers to qualify them to be good sellers or cooperative sellers so that you can get your deal done. Okay, great. Number 7, we found that oftentimes we go through the whole process, we get a short sale approval done. 90 days later, we're ready to go to a closing table. Everybody's excited. The investor's getting their money ready, and they do a walkthrough the day before closing. And I mean, there is shit everywhere, just everywhere, boxes, and they left all the furniture, and there's garbage. They had a party the night before. I had one of those, where there are holes in the wall. So you have to tell them, question number 7 is, do you promise me right now that you are going to leave this home in immaculate condition? I didn't say broom swept. I didn't say clean. I said immaculate. Are you going to promise me you're going to leave this house in immaculate condition? And that's a really important question to ask so that you don't have these problems the day before closing.
Because these people are checked out. They're checked out, Steve. I mean, they're 100% checked out. So they don't believe they have the same obligations that normal people oftentimes.
Right. Exactly. Number 8. This is a qualifying question. And I always ask this question. Gary likes this too, because it indicates cooperation on the seller's part or motivation, or again, Gary uses that word commitment. This question tells me if there's a commitment to be in the deal. And number 8 says, I want you to understand that there are some times in a short sale where the bank is not going to pay just 100% of everything. They will pay the realtors. They'll always pay your taxes, but sometimes they won't pay some title fees or an inspection or a city transfer cost, or sometimes all of the HOA or something. So they may not pay 100% of all costs. So do you have, I always throw it out, do you have $1,000 that you can access if we need it at closing to get the deal done? Oftentimes, guys, they're in financial problems. They may not have it, but I want to know that they were committed to doing it, or maybe I can borrow that from my dad, or I could access that through my 401k. That tells you that they're committed, they're in. So by just getting that commitment to see if they have a little bit of money, that's their skin in the game. And again, it keeps them in a deal, right, Gary?
Exactly. And Steve, just real quick, because I want to hit on a couple of things that you mentioned, and there's some comments. Dual agency, not possible in a short sale. Don't ever put yourself down as both the selling agent as well as the listing agent. You need to find somebody else in your office, a friend, a colleague, somebody to act as the other agent. They will not pay out a dual agency commission on a short sale. And the other question that was raised is, how are the fees paid for the attorney, for the short sale negotiator, for the real estate commissions? Here's the beauty of this. I found Steve, and I'm going to give you a very, very, very inside secret on Gary Davidson. I found Steve because I am lazy. Yes, I'm lazy. Steve does all the work. Steve does all of the work, and I take all of the credit. And Steve makes sure that the real estate agents get paid, I get paid, he gets paid, everybody gets paid, and it comes from the bank because they're taking less, and the money then is used to pay all of these people. Steve, how much do we put in for our brokers for real estate commissions?
All right. We always list 6%. So if you're a listing agent on a short sale, about 80% of the time, Gary and I are going to get you a 3.5% real estate commission. So if you list a short sale, you should list it at 2.5 in the MLS. Then we're going to get you 3.5 on your side. So we usually get a 6% commission, and we can usually pay our listing agents 3.5% about 80% of the time.
That's awesome. So we've got about 10 minutes. I like to keep these to 60 minutes. This is going to rebroadcast, guys. So feel free to share this with your friends on Facebook. We have our YouTube, Castle Law YouTube channel. You could go on there. If you missed some of the previous episodes of this, we had a live studio. You can listen to the voice of Castle Law. A lot of good people. I like to use the Ronald Reagan principle. I surround myself with people who are smarter, better looking, more in shape. Look at those medals right behind Steve's right shoulder. I mean, those are all running medals over there. So not very hard for me to do that. Steve is number one. So let's just take the last 10 minutes to let me look here at some of the questions that I didn't handle, because I want to make sure we answer everybody's questions. Commercial properties. Can we do commercial properties?
I've had no success at all with commercial.
Yeah. And I
don't know about you. I thought you had somebody you could refer these to, no?
Yeah, I've been referring someone. If people want to reach out to me, I do have an attorney in Chicago that I've been referring those to.
All right. So yeah, ours are just personal, 1 to 4 units.
Yep.
1 to 4 units we can do.
And the reason is because commercial, again, banks are reluctant to provide somebody a short sale when it's being used for commercial purposes, right? You are not a regular human being at that point. We get paid by bank, our dual agency. Rosario just mentioned that he knew I was lazy, which let me just look at a few of my notes here. BPOs and appraisals, are they the same in a short sale as in a traditional?
Oh my God, what a great question. Thank you to whoever sent that question in. No is the answer. Again, if you're in a traditional sale, right, where there's going to be equity in a property, the banks involved are normally going to pay a hefty fee either for a BPO or $400 or $500 for an appraisal. What I found this out about a year ago, is this has been going on for 10 or more years, people. So these banks have gotten more and more sophisticated, and because they're losing such a tremendous amount of money, most of these banks now are using a website where they list their short sale and foreclosure BPOs and appraisals on an auction on a bid website. They list the property they want done, and then realtors and appraisers are bidding to get the job. I have seen BPOs go for $35. What realtor in the world is going to spend an hour on a CMA for $35? None that I would know. And I've seen appraisals go for $150 instead of $400 or $500. So once you understand that the bank is using these cheapy options for both BPOs and appraisals, my question is, how good are they? They're awful, is what I'm going to tell you. They are god awful. And so I'm so glad you asked that question.
How are short sales? How should they be priced?
Market value, right? They always say, well, I can't list it for what they owe. That's right. If the bank takes the property back, they can only put it on the market for what today's reduced market value is. So I always tell realtors, market value. What's the market? What can you sell this house for today? That's what you listed for.
And speaking of market value, and again, this goes back to, we have to use some general common sense here. Sometimes people become ignorant or inept when the term short sale is used and we don't use common sense. Again, the bank is looking to minimize their risk and maximize their return. So you talk about pricing short sales. How many times, Steve, have our investors come to us and said they've prospected a potential seller, yet the property has not yet been listed? What do we tell those folks?
Right. Again, the banks have gotten smart over 10 years, people. Early on, we were getting investors incredible deals, right? Well, the banks got smarter and smarter, right? They started getting access to Zillow and all these other tools where they could try to check value. So today, it's just much more difficult. Investors can still get great deals. They're going to get great deals on property that need work, but those are the properties you guys make all your money on anyway. So the key is to get the property. So the banks are going to demand that they see the property listed in the MLS. They want to feel like they got a fair shake, right? And it was open to a lot of people. Now, again, when the call's done, contact Gary or I. We have some little tips and secrets where, yes, it can be listed in the MLS, but there's things that can be done where we can get your offer in first. So there's ways to get our investors as the primary buyer, even if it goes into the MLS. We just have to do it legally. Call us after the call and we can try to walk you through that.
Now, we want to talk just a couple of minutes about short sale affidavits, short sale approval letters, arm length affidavits, and deed restrictions.
Okay.
I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes on this just because it's a little bit in the legal realm of things. Understand, everybody, many, not all, short sales have deed restrictions. What I mean by that is that you cannot sell the property for a specified period of time after closing for an increase in the purchase price of X amount. So for those people who are wholesaling, and I hope that you're complying with the new Illinois Brokers License Act regarding wholesaling in Illinois, for those people who are wholesaling, the problem that we have with these is that we oftentimes don't know whether or not there is a deed restriction or whether or not there are other requirements until after the short sale is approved. So the best bet is short sales should not be done for purposes of wholesaling. Lots of misinformation on the internet about what can and can't be done. Number of people are out there in different states talking about selling an interest in an LLC or selling an interest in a trust. Recognize that under the Illinois Real Property Transfer Tax Act, it is a felony and subject to the Illinois Attorney General coming after you if you sell all or substantially all of an interest in a trust or in a corporation to circumvent. What do we need in Illinois? What are we known for in Illinois? Tax revenue. So if you are selling if you're transferring an interest in a trust or an LLC and you don't submit a P-tax and pay your taxes to the local and state, you're in violation of the Real Transfer Tax Act. Once you submit that MyDeck, the P-tax, and pay those transfer taxes, that's your smoking gun that you've transferred the property in violation of the restriction. So the key is this is all pretty in-depth stuff. We're here to help walk you through and make sure that you take advantage of those things that you can take advantage of. But more importantly, you stay safe and you stay on the right side of everything, because we're not going to go right up to that line. We're going to make sure that you're doing things ethically, properly, effectively to minimize your risk and maximize your return. Steve, we got about 3 or 4 minutes left.
Okay.
Spend just a couple of minutes describing that short sale approval letter, what goes into that. There was a question that was posed, can I do a sale on my relative's house? So we've got the arm's length affidavit that we have to be concerned about. What are the restrictions? How close of a family member? Things like that.
All right, guys, I'm going to tell you there's so many variables in the approval forms, deed restrictions, short sale affidavits, arm's length things. The key on all of these is call Gary and I first, right? Call us when you're getting started. Tell us what you got, and then we can try to help you with this, right? We can show you how to get another broker involved so you can get the whole 6% commission. We can show you how to sell it to a family member as long as they maybe don't have the same last name. You know, there are all kinds of legal ways. Call us first is the answer to all those questions instead of trying to get general answers, you know, because each one is probably going to be very specific, and we can help you with these things. We've got a lot of these deals done. Call us first. That's my answer to that.
So guys, it's 1:58. My commitment to you is that we're going to keep this to 60 minutes. Obviously, we gave you a very 10,000-foot overview of the process. Steve has been a key resource for me in helping my clients achieve that life worth living, that legacy worth living, that career worth having when they're investors. He's also been a key relationship in helping people who are in highly distressed situations, who have been impacted, whether it's a loss of a family member due to cancer, a loss of a job, some sort of catastrophic incident that have occurred in their life that they couldn't control, that have put them in a position where they need to sell their house short. And Steve is there helping people every day on the front lines. So Steve, I really appreciate you coming on. For those people who want to reach out to us, please, you can email me at gdavidson, Davidson, at castlelaw.com. You can also call the office, 815-744-6550. Feel free to contact me. Or if you really want true deep dive information and real substantive stuff, feel free to reach out to Steve directly, I think. Steve, do you want to give him information on how to reach you?
My cell phone number is area code 512-755-5915.
Guys, we'll be rebroadcasting this. Next week, we're going to be talking about estate planning, and we're going to be talking about powers of attorney for healthcare and for property, and the new Illinois state law. Finally, our governor and General Assembly have done something productive for the citizens of the state of Illinois, and they've passed an online notarization, audio, visual, online notarization, so that you can actually get your estate plan done, your power of attorney for healthcare property in the safety of your own home without having to go out in public. This is something that, now that we all have a little extra time on our hands, we need to get this done, because at Castle Law, we're here to help you minimize your risk, maximize your return, and help you create that life worth living, legacy worth leaving, and business worth owning. Thanks for joining me.